we're also doing a dive back into the strains of yesterday, where we check out the legends of cannabis that got cannabis culture to where it is today, who we have to thank for who we are. And today we are going over to the Caribbean. It's the Caribbean. It's we're taking a look at lamb's bread, baby. Lamb's bread. You know you love it. You know you want it. The Jamaican sun-soaked island. Oh man, and apparently the preferred strain of Bob Marley and Peter Tosh, right? It's the land of the Rastas, and lamb's bread is a Jamaican heirloom sativa, right? It's got its roots firmly out there in Rasta culture, and cannabis has been growing on Jamaica for a long time. But the Rastafari movement in the 30s, that's really what kind of cemented it as part of Jamaica's cultural identity. Right, so the religion kind of centers around Haile Selassie, Emperor Haile Selassie, who some people say is the second coming of Christ. And they use cannabis as a sacrament, a religious sacrament. It helps with their meditation and helps them communicate with God. Some people say lamb's bread, the name, is actually a reference to the Old Testament verse from Leviticus 23:18. And ye shall offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, and they shall be for a burnt offering unto the Lord. And as that population grew, cannabis kind of normalized on the island far before a lot of other modern cultures embraced it. Now, other than being from Jamaica, nobody really knows exactly where it came from. Some growers say the seeds first started coming west, from the Westmoreland region in Jamaica. It's kind of from the southwest area right on the coast. And today, that's where the best marijuana in the country comes from. So it's the best at growing. So the west of Jamaica and the east of Jamaica have very, very different climates, right? So the east has a lot more rainfall. It's more of a tropical jungle environment, where the west is drier, more sun, higher elevation, and a lot of coastal winds, just where marijuana likes to grow. A perfect environment for marijuana. The name lamb's bread didn't really become popular until Bob Marley popularized it in an interview with High Times magazine. He said he called the best marijuana he ever smoked lamb's bread. And ever since, people have wanted to get their hands on that sweet Jamaican lamb's bread, right? So some people point to that interview and say, hey, see, this is just a term for just great ganja in Jamaica. But nevertheless, lamb's bread was incredibly popular in the 70s, 80s, but by the 90s, it was pretty much gone. It kind of dropped off the map. So people are asking kind of where the heck did it go? But a lot of people point over to Ethiopia, right? Now, in the late 80s, lamb's bread was kind of going extinct on the island. They were growing strains that were more popular in Europe and the West internationally, like hybrids, like skunk number 1, that was coming around. But it wasn't much later after that, there was a big strain called Shashamane from Ethiopia that started popping up on the map. And when people smoked that, they were heavily reminded of the lamb's bread they were smoking back in the 60s. Everybody was calling it the same thing. But funny enough, in 1955, right, we're going back to 1955, Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, invited all Africans in the Caribbean to return and settle in Ethiopia. And a whole bunch of Rastafarians took them up on that offer, and they settled in the Shashamane region of Ethiopia. So people say they took their seeds with them and continued to grow for the religious community. But others say that the seeds went the other way, that lamb's bread was always an African strain to begin with. But either way you want to cut it, the strain made a huge name for itself in the hearts and minds of people who were able to smoke on the sweet, sweet stuff. Apparently, it was incredibly, incredibly flavorful, earthy, citrusy, heavy, heavy terps. Terps so strong, people say they had to smoke it out of a bong. It was so heavy. But it was a great daytime strain. It was true to that sativa roots that it knew. It's an uplifting cerebral high, energetic experience, kind of spurs creativity, but it keeps you clear-headed all day. It sounds like a dream. But these days, they say everything's hybridized on the island, so it's going to be pretty freaking hard to find any pure lamb's bread anywhere you look. But if you've ever had the chance to try it in its day when it was real, or if I'm wrong, if you found it these days, let me know in the comments. I want to hear about what it was like, what it is like. I want to know.